Hello, everyone. This is Judy at the Brahma Kumari's Meditation Center in Halifax. And we're all of us here in self-isolation. So the center is operating mostly on Zoom online. And we gathered a group of regular yogis, meditators who come here all the time to have conversations about some of the things that are causing concern at this time for us and for our friends and families around the world. And we wanted to have a conversation to uncover some of the spiritual messages. There are lots of things online about tips for how to stay home well, how to be in self-isolation and organize your day. And we were wondering, we were asking ourselves, well, what would be a uniquely spiritual perspective on this time? And one of the first topics we were thinking about was the financial insecurity that many people are feeling at this time and, well, in the whole world, and some of the fear that comes around financial insecurity or the threat of it. So that's what we were going to talk about today. And I'm just going to ask everyone to offer some of their reflections. We've gone into silence for a few moments, and then we've just written automatically what's come into our minds. And I'm just going to ask each person to just share what they've written and hear what wisdom comes from that. So I think we're going to start with Carol. So Carol, share with us what came to mind for you when you were thinking about how to deal with this fear of financial insecurity.
Well, our world certainly has changed rapidly in recent days, and we're in a situation that calls on us to basically breathe deeply, remain as calm as possible, and avoid overthinking. If we look at history, we know that other similar serious events have taken place in the past. We know that things do go in cycles. And in the past, we have been able to recover from these previous events. So if we keep this awareness in mind, we can strengthen our resolve and pause and step back and reflect. And in this way, we can gain a perspective that will allow solutions to emerge.
Thank you, Carol. Lovely. How about you, Terry? Mara, let's ask Mara. What were you thinking, Mara?
Kind of similar to what Carol has said, just to remember that humanity has faced harder times even than this in the past, and that we have come through with resilience. To remember that we're not alone. There is help, government help, agencies helps, friends, family, community help. Remember that you are not alone. Remember that this is also a time to reflect on what is essential in life, what is needed, what is essential, and to live in gratitude for that and what we have. And also in that reflection to think about what others may need and to be in a place of openness and giving to them. Also to be mindful to stay in the moment and to keep breathing with gratitude and not to get too far ahead of yourself trying to plan the future, because things are changing so fast. And also that this is an opportunity for us to learn how to become more comfortable with uncertainty in the external world by building our strength and resilience in our internal world.
Thank you, Mara. Terry, how about you? What have you been thinking? Terry, you'll have to unmute.
Sorry about that. So I agree with Carol and Mara. And what I've been thinking about is that really finances are a legitimate concern for all people at this time. And this is something, this situation that none of us have ever lived through before. It's comforting, though, that everyone is in the same situation. We also know it can't be changed. So we really need to accept that this is the reality And in that way, we can almost put the fear aside with the thought that no matter how much I try to outthink this, I can't. No matter how much I worry, it's really not going to change. So once we accept the situation for what it is, we can start to move on. We can start to live again. Albeit, it will be in a new reality, but we will live again. So this is a time when all of us have to live with uncertainty. We need to stop thinking about what might happen, and we really need to start focusing on the present, to focus on how to live well today, in this moment. The future will unfold in the way it will, and we do have the resilience we need as an individual, as family groups, as communities, and as a society. We can face this situation and not just survive, but we can thrive. We need to be patient, not think too far ahead, and trust that our leaders, our neighbors, and ourselves will make the best decisions they can with the information that they have at their disposal at that time. We need to grab onto hope, and we need to learn to live simply again.
Thank you, Terry. That's a beautiful message of faith in ourselves, actually, isn't it? Our own resilience, the resilience of our communities. Thank you. Leela, what have you been thinking?
Judy, I've been thinking that it's a great opportunity for all of us to become very, very present and live very much in the moment, and to take this opportunity to turn inward. So the external world is ever changing around us with highs and lows, ups and downs. When we attach to it and expect it to be permanent, we often can find ourselves very lost emotionally. Anxiety, worry, fear, depression can be generated from this deep attachment and expectation. So where can we turn to find stability and security? We can turn inwards and become very stable in ourselves, in knowing the spirit, the core of me, does not change. This spirit of me stays solid and intact, regardless of the ever-changing external world. Therefore, to feel and experience stability, I must return to my inner self, the place where peace, love, and compassion lie, the place where I know true permanence exists. I can live in this ever-changing external world with greater ease and lightness when I experience my inner self to be ever stable.
Thank you, Leela. So a message to go inwards. Very nice. Tim, how about you? What have you been thinking?
For me, it's a lot about unity. We're all in the same boat, whether you're a plumber or a cashier or stockbroker or policeman, policewoman, right up to major banking systems. So if we view this as these set of circumstances as through the viewpoint of a community working together for a solution to a problem, rather than I'm an individual and I have to conquer this to preserve my way of life, then there's a lot of pressure that's removed. There are alternatives to the current systems, proven, tried and true systems that work. And we could open up to the possibility of change and solution making. So it's an opportunity for that. Forced opportunity, but an opportunity nonetheless.
Thank you, Tim. I'm trying to remember if you were speaking before. Maybe it's Debbie, who's coming up now. I'm not sure, but let's see if we get to something about, you know, the tried and true methods of before we have traded and exchanged and taken care of each other in community before. I'm not sure. Maybe, Deb, that was what you were thinking. So, Deb, why don't you share, and then we'll come back to that if we haven't heard it.
Yes, I was thinking about that, and I was asking the question to start with, did you, all of us, ever think about the time that existed before the idea of currency was invented? People who lived close to each other shared what was needed and exchanged what they had. They did not look for what they didn't have. They looked at what they had and gave that to others who needed it. They also received what others had. The missing ingredient here is not money, but a sense of self-worth beyond money, and faith that those around you can care about you. So today, your assignment is to look at what you have accumulated in your account of self-worth and the interest you have accumulated in the gratitude of others. It's time for an economy of care, not an economy of cash or cards.
Aha. Wow. So just to make sure I heard that clear, because there was a little static in what you were saying, Deb. It's time for a currency of care, not a currency of cash or card, as in credit card? Oh, that's
Yes.
Lovely. Okay.
But I
Thank you.
used economy of care, not
Currency. So economy
Yeah.
of care instead of economy of cash and card. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. David, and I'm not surprised you gave us a homework assignment. True to the Debbie tradition. Very nice. Thanks, Deb. Okay. David, what have you been thinking about?
Well, it's just wonderful to have this conversation with this group of wise souls who've been yoga practitioners. What I wrote was, so many people all over the world are suffering and fearful because of the economic impacts of the coronavirus and governments, our responses to that. I feel we're blessed in Canada with a social safety net and promises to extend support for self-employed people and others living from month to month or week to week. We've also seen a blossoming of mutual support groups of people helping each other, caremongering. We've seen library boxes change to be material sharing spaces where anyone can go and pick up a jar of peanut butter if they need one, or even a roll of toilet paper. There's been some realization what our basic needs are and what other things are superfluous. And it's possible to live without them. We've seen people speaking out that the value of physical health, mental health, spiritual health, caring for others, and sharing and supporting others is more important than dollars in the bank. But what I'm thinking about is will this new perspective last? And does it really make a difference for people, particularly people living on the edge? People who are not sure how they'll feed their families tomorrow or the next day. And I'm thinking that some of the things others have talked about in terms of resilience and mutual support, and as Debbie said, an economy of caring is really important. Having hope for the future is really important. And thinking about a new world when this crisis has changed, and a new economy where we can make different kinds of choices, not only for ourselves, but for others. My own hope is like a virus spreads, we can spread a virus of caring and sharing and focus on love and happiness and peace with others as part of a new economy for the world.
Wow. So a time of transformation then, a new economy for the world. That's Beautiful. I remember when we read Charles Eisenstein's work called Sacred Economics, and it was about igniting, or the ignition for the economy, a different economy, was giving, and that by giving first, everything will come back, which is essentially the law of karma. And I guess that was the thing that I was thinking about when we had this conversation. Was that, you know, for so many of us, I know for myself, you know, my sense of security was really tied to the bank account. And, you know, many of us, I have friends and family who have saved their whole life to be able to retire now. And they're looking at their savings and thinking, well, if there's X amount in there, I'll be okay. You know, so this feeling of security tied to the bank account. And I guess we had a bit of a dry run in 2008 when, you know, many people lost up to 30% of their savings, and it's a similar experience now. But I remember back then thinking, how could spirituality help me in this situation? And I remember, you know, the lesson of karma, that I really felt that maybe I needed to redirect my sense of security somewhere else other than the bank account. And maybe, you know, what would it be like if I made the foundation of my security something else? And you know, being internal, of course, but thinking about the one thing that I actually can trust, and I felt like it was the only thing I could actually trust, was my karma. So I can rely on my karma. If I have given, which is karma just means action, whatever I have done, whatever I have given, I will receive back. So in a way, it's like what you've been speaking about, a currency of love flowing, but that it's time to live simply and to live the law of love, which is by giving, I will receive. And you see this in tough times where, you know, there is help, and people who have helped others receive help, and they receive what they need, and maybe not always what they want, but often what they want, but definitely what they need. And so I guess just trusting my own karma, my own whatever I have given means I will receive. And that, I guess it's sort of similar to what some of you have been saying about the community, helping others. And we are seeing that now, and it gives me great hope for humanity that we recognize that this is actually more important than some of the other systems we've built. And maybe the other systems started simply like that and then just got complicated and a bit further removed from the original seed of, you know, exchanging fair value, you know, and greed has entered and brought that to such a point that none of us, like I ask people, do you understand how the economy works? And, you know, the stock market, where we're actually buying the hope of something happening. And, you know, it's all so complicated and it's so far removed from actual value and true value that it feels like it's a wonderful time to come back to true value. So, you know, to take Debbie's point about self-worth and self-value, and maybe it's time that we come back to a much more honest exchange and a much more honest sharing of true value with each other. So I find that hopeful. So those were some of my reflections. And I wonder if anyone had anything to add before we close on this segment. Anything that inspired anyone else in our conversation to add something before we close? Okay. So I hope that's helpful for those of you listening. It was a real honest effort on our part and a challenge to ourselves. What's the spiritual wisdom that we feel we've been gathering? So I hope that's helpful for you. And there may be more. So thank you for listening, and please take care of yourselves out there. Om Shanti, goodbye.